Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Saturday night Roundtable podcast for Big Brother 22. I'm your host, Taryn Armstrong, and joining me this week, we've got Mike Bloom. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well, Taryn. I just realized that I'm wearing my old school shirt, which probably means by Tyler's rules, I have to be the most boring panel member, so I'm prepared to play that role.
There you go. Also joining us is Chantel. How you doing, Chantel?
Well, it took a couple of tries and a couple of guys to pretty much ruin a season that had so much potential. I'm in mourning.
Yes. And also joining us this week is Brendan Meyer. How you doing, Brendan?
I'm doing good, Taryn. It's been good. Ever since Thursday, I have had so many opportunities to be right, and I've always chosen to be kind. So I am just immensely proud of myself. I just.
Congratulations, man. That is the way to go.
Yeah, you have to really say like WWJCMD.
Yes.
And you have to investigate every decision of your life with that.
Exactly. We are here to talk about everything that's been happening on the Big Brother 22 live feeds since the last time we had a roundtable, and that was Tuesday night. So let's talk about what we've been seeing on the show and on the feeds. The last time we spoke, Nicole, Anthony, and David were on the block. Nicole Anthony was questioning the loyalty of Keisha and Janelle, and in a very frustrating way. Nicole did eventually kind of find out that they weren't against her. She kind of had a heart-to-heart with Keisha where he was like, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault." But it didn't really stick, I think, until Julie said something to her. And even then, I felt like it didn't really stick until she watched the goodbye messages, Mike.
Yeah, it's, obviously getting into Nicole's head, and you and I both had the chance to talk with her yesterday, and you could really tell this was someone whose judgment was so clouded by so many factors, be it the anxiety she was experiencing almost instantaneously from playing back-to-back, the inherent fear that she had, as you've spoken about facing a very similar situation, and just having best friends in the house who had the completely wrong opinion about things. It was a perfect storm that led to this moment where, in my opinion, I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about acting over the course of this. I'm glad we have Brendan here for that reason. I personally feel like she looked genuinely remorseful during all that, to the point where we had that awkward Julie Chen Moonves moment of like, I want to hug you, but I can't, where she did look like genuinely awestruck that she had just such a terrible assessment of people. I know that she told me the next day that the main thing that she took away from all this is that she felt she let Janelle and Keisha down. And it's a really interesting take from all that. She also had some very choice words for the majority alliance after that sixum was revealed. But yeah, I mean, it goes to show again the headspace that she was in, that even on that Wednesday night when Janelle and Keisha both sat down with her and told her, like, just so you know, we've had your back the entire time, she's still like, I want to trust them, but I don't know if I can.
Yeah. Oh, man. I feel like I should use that JC Moonves tactic of like, man, Mike, I would love to hug you right now, but I can't. So,
I mean, isn't that all we're sort of using to like fake intimacy in these times of like, listen, I would love to personally have more contact with you, but diseases, you don't want to necessarily do that. So epidemiologically speaking, I can only maintain a certain amount of verbal contact with you.
I would love to asterisk hug you right now, but
and listen, I think Bailey right now is like wishing to be on the outside from that perspective, considering how she's just very much like, nobody touch me, nobody be around me right now.
Yeah. Chantel, what was your read on this Nicole Anthony situation?
I mean, I was really frustrated, obviously, like most of us were, because
like
we're
Melissa
seeing,
was.
Absolutely, but like we're seeing it, everything from our perspective, and we're seeing all, and so we know like they have good intentions with what was going on, and so it was just really frustrating to see that she'd take all this evidence and just confirm something that was completely wrong and misguided, and I felt that she kind of became a little bit of like the bully that she was kind of protecting herself from in her past seasons, because she was really being negative and really not talking down about two people that, in her opinion, yes, maybe they're doing something wrong, but she's kind of gathering the groups and the troops together to kind of talk about Janelle and Keisha in such a negative light. And so I found it really fascinating that she didn't catch herself kind of being the mean girl in the situation. So I was kind of upset that she didn't have a better read, and I thought she would have a better time in the house if she just embraced the fact that, hey, maybe Janelle and Keisha really were on my side. Like, let's play this game together, and like it just might have been a better experience for her in the end. So.
Yeah, Kaser actually found out from Bailey this week that after they gave a big pitch, so at the end of last week, Janelle, Kaser, Nicole Anthony sat Bailey, Devon, and Christmas in a room, and they said, like, hey, we need to form together. We need to band together to fight the power in this house. We need to make this happen. We need to vote to keep Nicole Anthony. We need to make this happen. Then Kaser and Janelle left the room to let the other four talk, and immediately after they left, Nicole Anthony was like, I know they suck. I know they're liars and we can't trust them. But let's us make a thing together, and then we can deal with them later. And so Bailey let Kaser know this week that that's what Nicole said after they left, and they were like, why? Brent, why would she do that?
I don't know. I mean, this was just such a tough week. I mean, it's one thing to have the house again, like have so many people in the house against you, and then to pretty much be running away from the only people who are looking for you. And I think it's a tough spot. It's too bad for Nicole, because I think it's an interesting spot when you come back into the game and you were a fan favorite the first time, but maybe you didn't get to play the game the way you wanted to, and you feel like, you really want to prove that it was just circumstance last time, and that you have so much more to show as a game player, especially if you're a huge fan and stuff like that. And I wonder if just the pressure of that was too much. And I think that and I think you even have said this at some point, I was like, she may have just waited a little bit, she just she didn't start playing quickly enough. And then I think by the time she was in danger, she just didn't have a good enough view of the game board. I mean, she just didn't really know what was going on enough to effectively save herself.
And to that point, at least the reason she ascribes to it, and I don't want to connect this back to mental health again and again to almost use it as a crutch, but she really did say that the reason why she really took a step back in that first week was because of her anxiety, to the point where apparently like Kevin approached her at one point, like, you need to get out of bed. And she's like, I physically cannot. So, I do not begrudge her whatsoever for taking the opportunity that she did. This is the first time in 14 years we've had an all-star season. Who knows when the next one's coming, especially given the reception of this season so far. And so I can imagine that even the reservations that she had, it would make sense for her to be like, I'd be stupid not to take this opportunity right now, especially if we're striking while the iron is hot. As you said, Brendan, she just came off of being, in my opinion, one of the most universally beloved modern Big Brother players of all time. Like, I think her casting made total sense. It was just a matter of things not lining up in the right way. I know, Taryn, you and I talked about this on the Sunday recap as well. I didn't think it didn't help that she did not necessarily have anyone in there that was like so gung-ho about working with her besides someone like Kevin, who he himself was on the outs of that first week as well. And when the beginning of Modern Big Brother, and especially this season, really consisted of like, hey, get a group of people together that are going to promise loyalty to each other, she was left on the outs of that. And as a result, now like the hyenas are essentially being pitted against one another now.
Yeah, I think too, she came into Big Brother 21, and I've mentioned this a few times, but she was playing pretty well in the first couple of weeks, or at least in the first week or so, where she had a lot of great relationships with the people in power. I think that in a lot of other seasons, she probably would have been brought into the big group. This just was a particularly unfortunate big group for her. But she went into that season kind of, I think, like expecting to go on and do well, even though she does have these anxieties, these social anxieties. But then she was really like slapped down. And I think she came into this season fearing for the worst, fearing that it was going to happen again. And that fear is part of what made it happen to a degree, because she did kind of hold back, and she kind of only talked to certain people until she finally kind of forced herself to talk to other people. But by that point, it was a little late, and she didn't really follow it up too much. And then she got so in her head about being like on the outs and being betrayed that she found herself in a position where she was like, even the people that I have talked to are setting me up. And it really just got in her head, Chantal.
Well, what I actually been noticing is that it seems as though like the past season, but especially this season, that people don't want to use strategy. Like, like what Kaser has been like saying to them is something that's really logically sound and how to play the game. It makes sense to kind of keep in the numbers, and people are pushing that away. And so I think that, she was not necessarily comfortable with playing the game, and she was kind of just really working through her feelings, and it just didn't really line up with the dynamics of this particular house. So I wanted her to come back, and I think that she should have come back with that opportunity. But I think that this particular house and the style of players playing just really didn't line up with her gameplay this season. Felt really bad.
Yeah. So Nicole Anthony is sent home, and I no longer have to say Franzel again. So
I still call her Franzel. I still do.
Sometimes.
Now that she's last name status, it's like you can't.
I take that back.
Her.
Nicole. Nicole F.
Yeah. No, she's continuing a great streak though. To Brendan's point, coming off of Mickey. My God, Franzel being F, really 2 for 2 in last name.
Is this the last name? Is it the last name Blessing or the last name Curse? We don't know.
I think Curse at this point.
Blessed to win the game, cursed to be hated.
To win, curse. Yeah, it's a curse for us. It's a blessing for them.
So we're gonna get an HOH competition. It's the kind of HOH competition that I enjoy, but unfortunately, it is not going to break in the way that I think most people were hoping. By 12 points to 11, Tyler is going to beat Janelle in the HOH competition, and just like that, one of Janelle or Kaser will almost certainly be leaving this week, as he is going to nominate them. Pretty straightforward fashion here, Brendan. Not much to do.
You can't really argue with what Tyler's doing. I mean, it's been compared a lot to that Derek week with Devon through the week. I mean, Tyler is in a great spot. And I'll be honest, maybe we'll get into it later, but when people like Josh and KC were supposedly not in the cast, I didn't think it was necessarily shaping up for Tyler to be able to be in a similar spot, but he's in a good spot here in week 3, and it's in his best interest to not rock the boat, and then kind of recede back into the shadows. At this point. And, so, I mean, I think that as disappointing as fans of both Janelle and Kaser, but I think strategically he made the right move.
Are you on board with that, Chantal?
I mean, for his particular game, yeah, he has to do what the house wants here. If he draws a line in the sand, he's going to be on the outs, and he's going to have a lot of people that might be angry with that decision. So he kind of has to go with the majority here. And yeah, there's no real other choice for him to put anybody up right now. I
think the more interesting decision, and it's already being talked about post veto, is which one of the two of them is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for as much as people were sort of maligning this as a boring week, I do agree with what Liana said on the update this morning, that I do think these slower weeks, especially in a house that is full of game players, they're not going to use this downtime to twiddle their thumbs and talk about their favorite cookie recipes. They're going to start thinking ahead as to what exactly they want to do, especially with all these configurations within configurations. And I've already seen some talk happen as to whether Janelle might or might not be going this week. And I think it's a really interesting thing where this could be the first real test of whatever alliance you want to talk about in terms of the individual inclinations of its members and who is going to win out above the other, and how will that affect, those configurations moving forward.
Brendan, do you think this is going to cause a rift here to the decision between Janelle and Kaser?
I think it could. I mean, I think it depends. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like Cody is kind of one of the people that wants to see Kaser go the most, and it'll be just interesting to see if he pushes, how hard he pushes, how other people push, and so I guess it just depends on if the people on opposite sides really decide to put their foot down. I think that's where it'll get really, really exciting. If one person pushes and the other just goes, not this week, maybe not, but I think we could be heading for something interesting if we actually get people who want to make a move. Kind of like Mike's saying, there's only 2 people who are exposed, there's all these other people who are now playing without the fee. It's not like Survivor or these other shows. They know they can't go home. So it's like, how aggressive do you play and how much do you take an opportunity when you know you can't go home?
Yeah, I think we do see that there are some strong opinions on either side, especially last week. Memphis and Cody talked about how they were going to push. They planned on pushing very hard to see Kaser go home this week in the event that they were both up on the block. However, I have seen some wavering from both of them. Memphis is now pushing for Janelle to go home, especially after seeing her compete in the HOH. He feels like she's more capable of pulling people to her side. In fact, Memphis sees it like, hey, Kaser is the guy who is not going to be able to reintegrate because he's always playing, like throwing out these crazy theories. Like he can't help but like just play hard. Whereas Janelle might be able to like slide back into the background and make friends again. And I'm not entirely sure I see it the same way. I think Janelle would remain a bigger target than Kaser. Although Kaser and Janelle did just have a conversation today where Janelle suggested to Kaser that after she leave, he take it easy. And he was like,
Nope.
no, I can't.
I can't do it.
That was an interesting combo because I think that was also the one where Janelle's like, if I win HOH, you know what? I'm just going to go after the floaters. I'm just going to go after Devon and Kevin. And it's like, no, we want that to happen, but don't do that.
I mean, here's the thing, though, with Janelle is that every single season she's played in, she's tried to play the team game. It doesn't work out. And then she just kind of like plays ball with the other side and makes it to the final three. So, like, I mean, I don't think she has a path to the end fighting the power here, Chantal.
Well, I actually, obviously, I don't want either of them to go. But one thing that I heard that's been happening in the rumblings lately is that they don't want another woman to leave. So that might be on our side here. I definitely don't like how, gender has been really unbalanced and the people that are winning all these competitions have been majority male. And so it's been a male-centric season. So I'm happy that at least some of the guys are thinking like, hey, I don't want a third woman to be evicted this week, and especially on my HOH. And so I'm happy that at least that's becoming part of the conversation here. I do think the boys are going to most likely want to get the guys out and maybe the girls, Janelle. So
yeah,
if that's the case, it looks like Kaser might be leaving.
Well, that's the thing is that the main thing that I saw was that Enzo has already started to float out the idea of keeping Janelle around. And it's primarily because he said we could use her to take out Nicole. And so that I feel like would be, I think, to the point that I made before, I think if there is a schism that might develop, it would come specifically from Janelle staying, because Nicole Franzel is going to say, if I was pushing so hard, if Janelle was like just treating me like crap, quote unquote, this entire time, and my alliance decided to keep her in the game, what does that say about them?
Yeah, I think also, so they played in the veto today. It was a very quick one. Cody won the veto. I believe Tyler was second, and Kaser did well, or was close to doing well. Like he just screwed one thing up. They keep talking about, oh, he had it right, but then he screwed this one thing up. So instead of Janelle being the most recent, like, oh, she came so close, now Kaser had like a decent performance, I think, in a competition, and I think that's helping Janelle to some degree. I do though. I think we might see a relatively straightforward week in terms of who they're going to evict. I do think it's going to be Janelle. I think there's a lot of momentum in that direction. Devon is going to want that because she wants Janelle out of the way because she thinks Bay is too close to her. We're going to see that, I think, I'm not sure. I thought Kevin would want Janelle to stay over Kaser, but Janelle has had some choice things to say about Kevin lately. So I don't think he's going to care much. I think that, Tyler has talked a lot about, Janelle should probably go. I think Tyler felt much better about his conversation with Kaser than he did about his conversation with Janelle, which we unfortunately did not see. But in the conversation with Kaser, Tyler talked to him about like, hey, like, I wish that we could have worked together. You started throwing out my name before I was even doing that stuff, and I was trying to pull you in. And Kaser's like, I'm sorry. And he like owned up to the fact that he was saying Tyler's name, versus supposedly in the Janelle conversation, she was like, what? Say your name. Well, I don't even. Is your name Taylor? I don't even know. What is even your name? So I'm all about Nicole. I've always said Nicole's name.
Yeah, and I think Tyler's the type of player that is constantly collecting, adding to his collection. So, you know, that's what he does. So if he sees two people on the block and he thinks one can sort of come in, even if he just does evict them the next week, it's all about his options, right? And things like that. So that could bode well for Keisha.
Yeah. So interesting stuff there. Also, as Chantel pointed out, and as I tweeted out earlier, that with Cody winning this veto and Enzo winning the safety competition and Tyler winning the HOH, we now have the first 8 of 9 competitions won by a man. The 9th competition was won by Christmas, who is like by far the most physically fit woman on the cast.
And the veto, I heard it was like a Tower of Hanoi thing. It was a puzzle.
It was some sort of puzzle thing, and that's like you know, you tweet this out, and yes, I do think that most of the competitions have been relatively equal opportunity so far. But my worry is that a couple of these competitions were stacked in favor of the men. From night one, where they had the easier ball puzzle thing. Then even the part 2 of that one, where it favored people with longer legs, and that, like, certain builds, and like again, Christmas would have had a good chance at it, but like you shouldn't have to be Christmas to be able to compete. And then we had the veto, which was the Memphis veto, which was like all apparently like biceps, like just holding this thing up that they've said repeatedly the women had no chance in. And so just even having a couple of those that favor the same kinds of people, and then having other ones being equal opportunity, you know, then you put yourself in a position where you are relying on the one crapshoot competition where Tyler's up against Janelle, and she comes very close, but you get unlucky, and now Tyler's the HOH, and now there's another physical competition somewhere along the lines, and we haven't even gotten to the portion of the game that I usually complain about, which is the back half, where in the last 2 seasons, like over 60% of the competitions have been overtly physical. And like that's worrisome when you're looking at the people left in the game and who's going to be capable of winning a competition. The Big Brother structure, the game is structured in a way that relies on a variety of people winning competitions, because if Janelle had won this competition, we'd be seeing an entirely different game. I don't think it would have saved Janelle, but it would have blown some stuff up. I can tell you that, Chantel.
Absolutely. And I'm just wondering if that's what the producers wanted, was just this male-centric game, only guys playing these physical competitions. I know that they've been seeing all these players go to the challenge where it's very physical. So maybe they just want to go down that direction. Maybe they want it to be an all-male, like all-physical competition game show. Maybe that's the new phase of Big Brother. It's going to be like the female edition and the male edition. I don't know.
I personally, I don't think that that's what they want. My theory on this is, and I've actually, I've spoken to some people who, do these things, that they are like really just big on these big budget set piece
spectacle
competitions that look really cool on TV, and they don't pay as much attention to the balance of the competition, and so I think that they are, as they often do, unintentionally sort of like pushing a certain outcome with their focus on something that is not the balance in the game here, Brendan.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brendan.
Oh, no. I was just going to say that's right. And the randomness is the reason why Big Brother is such a fun game, is that because one person gets this massive amount of power every week, that's supposed to be the excitement of it, right? Is that, every week is a different kind of week. And as we've seen, like we were talking about with Nicole and starting too slow, like it's just lately in these seasons, it used to be winning the first HOH was maybe not a good thing. And now it seems like winning it is this massive advantage because you start to set the pace of the game. And so, when you see Cody, Tyler, Memphis winning the first 3 HOHs, and again, they weren't all physical, so I guess maybe we just got unlucky, but it's tough. They need to inject more randomness throughout the game because people are just getting the game early and really putting it on lock.
I mean, to that point, for me, it really comes down to that first HOH. Because as has been talked about this past week, Melissa talked about it really well, that modern day Big Brother, which was sort of pioneered by the bomb squad / detonators, was like, okay, when you're the first HOH, make like a really solid, pretty big alliance. And then you're guaranteed to, like, there's a good chance that just due to purely the numbers, someone who's close to you or someone who's friendly with you is going to win the next HOH. And so when you're looking at who is most likely to be favored in the first competition, if it's physical, it's going to be one of those guys. And who are the younger males going to associate with? Most likely the other younger males. And as a result, you get a 6-person alliance that looks like some, paint samples of what you want to paint. And it's because like-minded people seek like-minded people, especially when you look down the line and say, well, if these competitions are going to be similar, let me bring in some other people that I know could win these competitions if I can't compete.
And I was going to say, it just puts the other people in a defensive position, right? When one person is in that situation, if you're not one of those people, you still have to acquiesce and you're kind of put in a position where you sort of have to adjust to the house instead of being able to set it up. And that's tough. You have no choice, or you could be the first one out, or it's just tough.
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen in the last 3 seasons, which is when we've started to see this trend, is that the power in the game becomes passed around a very small handful of concentrated people. In season 19, you had Paul winning an insane amount of competitions. In season 20, you had Tyler, Angela, and Casey. Between the 3 of them, they were trading off competition. They had like 18 competitions between the 3 of them in the back half of the game. And then season 21, Jackson and Holly just ran the competitions in the back half of the game. And we aren't in the back half of the game yet, guys. That's what concerns me. So hopefully what we're seeing right now is that we have gotten unlucky and they have already addressed this problem. And in the back half of the game, we're going to see Kevin winning a bunch of competitions and who else?
Caser's still going to be there. No, Bay Day, I think, is what we're pushing for right now, because I'm fearful of the one thing that I'm intrigued by, though, is Taryn, like you pointed out, it's not only that the competitions are won by these like young athletic guys, but specifically like a set group of people in the form of Cody, Enzo, Tyler, and Memphis. And I wonder, Tyler went to the final 4 with 2 competition threats, went to the final 2 with 1, and you could say part of the reason why she ended up squeaking him out was due to those competition wins. I do wonder how much is in Tyler's mindset to be like, I don't want to do that again. Maybe take almost the Enzo attitude of like, do I really want to go to the end again with people who could win their way out to a position that I don't want them to be in?
It's definitely possible. I mean, this is something that Cody talked about in the first couple days of the game, and I tweeted it out that he was like, "Yeah, the game isn't what the competitions are not what they used to be. Like what Derek and I did is that we got all the competition threats together, and then we just won all of the competitions. It's that easy. So let's just do that again, and that is what they have been doing."
So. It's just so unfortunate.
It feels hopeless. It's almost like we're at a point where we have to hope they turn on each other, like that, and hope they do it early,
Well, it has been happening a little bit that Danny, I can't remember who she was talking with, but wants to, it's like, oh, Tyler's dangerous. Like, yeah. Tyler might get far. So they do have their eye on Tyler and not letting him get that far. So maybe that would happen sooner than later. But he wins a lot. He wins. Yeah.
And on the other side, you also have Tyler, I think, talking with Enzo today, being like, Danny and Nicole are always off together. Like, I don't trust Danny. Clearly, there was a lot of stuff from that whole Danny, Devon, Tyler thing last week that has held over a bit. So I agree that I think if this committee alliance is going to have a schism, I do think that it's going to be Danny and Tyler centric, because those are the 2 that are really staring at each other.
Yes, in the 3 days of Tyler's HOH reign thus far, Danny has mentioned targeting Tyler to Nicole 3 times. So every single day she's made a comment about like, that Tyler, he's good. We need to target him. And then yesterday, that that Tyler, he played recently. He was able to get back in the swing of things really quickly. We got to target him after Devon and them. And then today, after the veto competition, she said to Nicole, "Oh man, Tyler threw that veto to Cody, making Cody a bigger target. That's not what we want. We want Tyler to be the bigger target. Now, why is Cody winning this? We want Tyler to win this. We want people to target Tyler." Tyler has talked to Cody about targeting Danny. Yeah. That's after Devon, and we need to go after Danny because she's too dangerous. So this is definitely something. There's something here for sure. And the amount that they are talking about Devon and how she has been testing people and she was upset that she was not saved by the safety competition. That they really are talking about not trusting her very much. I think if Janelle goes, I really do feel like they're going to forget about Kaser and they're going to go after Day. And then I think the Tyler-Danny war commences. I really do.
Yeah, that will be definitely interesting times for sure. I actually also think that's what's been going on this week is that they're setting up reasons to put Devon and Bailey and even potentially David on the block with all those rumors of David having a little bit of a thing with Devon and teasing, and then the Nicole Franzel being offended by the comment that Bailey made, so now she can be upset with Bailey. And so I think that they might be setting up these three people to just have very sound reason as to why they're going to be going up on the block. So I don't think that they're in the clear just because Kaser's still left in the game. I think that they very easily could be the next potential nominations.
I'm very curious about like what Kaser's place in the game is going to be, because typically in this spot, Janelle goes home and Kaser does just blend back into the background and he does just focus on relationships and they kind of overlook him. But that's not Kaser. Like, we've never seen Kaser without Janelle in the house. True. He pointed that I've never been in here without you here with me. And he's like, I'm not just gonna lie down. I'm gonna go rogue. I'll have no team, but I'm gonna keep pushing. I'm gonna keep being aggressive. That's just who I am. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know.
That's why I love Janie. But that's why I kind of want to hope she goes here, because we've seen that story twice over, right? We've seen Janelle go to the end twice. Kaser playing without Janelle is a brand new narrative in Big Brother that I am so intrigued to experience. Like, is he going to pick someone up? Is he going to try to plumb that Ian well, no matter how dry that is? Is he going to take up that conversation with Tyler and be like, you know what? Maybe I will work with you. Is he going to take the gas off of Cody a little bit? It's a bigger mystery. Whereas I think with Janelle, again, like, she is, for drama's sake, having her stay in the house would be incredible. But also, like, I don't know. I'm also of two minds where if Janelle leaves, there's a chance that her name gets out of everybody's mouths and nobody thinks about her anymore. Or there's a chance she becomes the Alyssa of the season and everyone just keeps trashing her despite the fact that she's gone.
Yeah, I just don't see Janelle surviving. Even if she survives this week, I think there's no, like, even if she tries to blend back into the background, like, that's the game she tried to play in 14, and it didn't really work. Janelle, I've talked about this on Twitter too, that last week was the first week Janelle survived in the game without being immune since Chicken George won HOH in the final 8 of the original All-Stars. It's been a little bit. It's been a while, and it's probably only going to be one. And even in All Stars, that was the only week that she was vulnerable in the entire season. If you don't count when Kaser was HOH and James was HOH in weeks 2 and 3. Of course, until she was evicted at Final 3. So, like, Janelle just, from jump in that season was also targeted. She only survived through the blessing of a lot of competition wins, and it doesn't seem to be happening for her this season, Brendan.
No, it doesn't. And it would have been great to see. And, Janelle, she's just such an iconic player that I do feel like she's almost in that Sandra Game Changers mode where just every week it's so fun to see her keep staying and stay with the big target. But yeah, I kind of agree with Mike that Kaser has more avenues and yeah, now he's saying he might not be able to do it, but I think he could. And if he can really, once Janelle's out of the game, if he can believe it. I almost wonder if maybe he doesn't believe that he can. Maybe he believes the house isn't ready for it. And I think if he gets on it and sees that there's other avenues, he might be able to sneak back under the radar. And that'd be very exciting. I mean, it'd be very exciting to see him kind of weather this early storm and maybe get a few extra weeks in there. I mean, it's too bad then the attention turns today, and that's where now we're choosing again between two people we like, but it's great for Kaser.
Well, yeah, I think the thing is that Kaser right now, what he's been experiencing for the past 2 weeks is a brick wall, right? Like he tried to save Keisha, he tried to save Nicole Anthony, and he believes that this formidable alliance of 4 or 6 or 7 stood in his way, stopped him from getting the votes, and that's why he's Charlie Brown trying to kick this football for the past 18, 17 days. And so I do wonder, to your point, Brendan, like, will his attitude change? Will he realize that there are more openings than he thinks? Because that's the other thing, too, is that Kaser is used to playing in a very team-oriented environment where there weren't lots of outs in season 6 because there were 2 separate sides. Even with the time he played in Big Brother 7, he essentially made it 2 teams by saying, let's take out the floaters. So I do wonder, like, if we're talking Survivor parlance, how much does Kaser think about the voting blocks mentality of like, okay, I can create a fluid game if I make like little 1 to 2 person deals with people.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen people do it, like Bailey after Swaggy left. We've seen people get back in.
Hear me out. Kaser without Janelle is actually the greatest of all time. We've just never been able to see it. That she is his kryptonite. That he cares too much about her, and it distracts him from the game. But Kaser without Janelle goes on to be the better than Dan, better than Dr. Will. He dominates the season.
So this is like he has like undiscovered potential, and like this is like Uncle Ben dying in Spider-Man, or like Batman's parents dying, and like this is what he needed to become the person he was meant to be.
In 2 other timelines, Spider-Man died instead of Uncle Ben.
There we go.
I mean, I would love to see if this is what happens. Like, this is his origin story of the great Kaser. Like, it would be amazing. He just needs to figure out how to pivot and like work in a new dynamic. And so I think the fact that he's going to be forced to, in a situation where it's completely unfamiliar to him, he's going to have to change his tactics because he doesn't have someone that he's fighting for in the moment. And so I think he's going to be forced to do it. So we might see this.
Yes.
It does feel like that conversation with Janelle. You can do it. I don't know how to. You have to. Look inside yourself.
I'm here for Bat Kaser. Like he's like, all right, I have to become who I hate the most.
He's hardened by the death of Janelle. He becomes his hero.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation he had with Janelle where he was like, I know it's impossible, but I have to try. I was like, this is such a good montage package for his final 2 montage. Like, I was like, come on, give me this.
Like all the montages that have been on Twitter lately have
already
actually made me cry. Like I'm crying about like this friendship that's being torn apart by this game. And like, I don't know, I've been really emotional about it. So hopefully that we can have this new arc of Kaser that will, be redemption for how many tears I've shed over these 2.
All right. Let's talk about a little bit about the state of the house here. We have it's mostly the same. We have a couple of new sort of alliances, new sort of configurations. It's still Cody's crew that's running the game, which consists of varying Venn diagrams of groups. But I still believe the core of it is Cody and Enzo together. I think that Cody is most loyal to Enzo. Only because I think he gets along a little bit better with Tyler, but I think Enzo is a more appealing player to bring all the way to the end because Tyler's too dangerous. But they do have kind of a bros thing, Cody, Enzo, and Tyler, where Tyler is the bandit, and Cody is Zuko, and Enzo is the meow meow.
I'm glad he did not sequelize his name whatsoever. He's like, I'm gonna stick with what this is good. I'm got a 100% success rate for the meow meow.
Every time you said one of those names, I just imagined a freeze frame and like,
yeah,
coming.
You know it's coming, Brendan. You better believe it's coming.
They also have kind of pulled David in as a bro. They've kind of like semi-formalized a bro thing. There's also the core four, which is Cody, Enzo, Danny, and Nicole. There's Connect 4, which is basically almost, they mentioned it recently, but basically gone at this point. That's Cody, Enzo, Bailey, and Devon. There's the Committee, which is the only alliance that the show has shown so far. Which is Cody, Memphis, Nicole, Tyler, Danny, and Christmas. Again, weird to me that Julie was like, hey, Nicole, this is the alliance that got you out, when like nobody in this alliance counts Memphis as really part of it, and all of their other alliances are way more important.
Yeah, and also, like, she wasn't specifically put up because these 6 people were like, we're going to get Nicole Anthony
They didn't even
this
want
time.
it to happen.
They didn't know about it.
They fought harder than Nicole fought.
Yeah, they're like, they wanted Janelle and Kaser. Like, Julie should have provided that. Like, just so you know, it's really this one guy's fault this entire week happened. Like, this one specific person. Everyone else was like, okay, I guess we like David more, so I guess Nicole Anthony, you're like our third choice behind Janelle and Kaser, but sure.
Yeah. There's also this new group called the Slick Six. That's a fake alliance to, calm Bailey and Devon's fears, essentially, to keep them reeled in when Kaser and Janelle were trying to pull them in the other direction. And that's Cody, Enzo, Bailey, Devon, Danny, and Tyler. I'm pretty sure Tyler keeps talking about the 2 alliances that he's in. I think Tyler looks at it as the Committee and the Slick Six, which are like 2 of the more fake alliances. But he also does have the bro thing, which keeps him in the core, even though he's unaware of some of the others. But that's mostly Cody's crew there. And then you still have, Janelle and Kaser, not really Memphis, but they kind of, but not really think that at this point they've given up. They're like, they know Memphis is a free agent. They know that he might be working with other people, but they're just like, he's not with us.
I have a question though. Why haven't the people like Christmas and Devon and Bailey just kind of compare notes, and Kevin even just be like they can't all be number 6. So why haven't they just had like a little bit of conversation as to like, okay, what's been promised to you? Like, I don't know. I feel like it would be piquing my interest as to like, why does everybody feel so safe not to be taking Kaser's plan a little bit more seriously?
I feel like it's the final 2 deals, right? Because like I know Tyler just cemented his with Christmas. I think they're like the Carolinas or something.
Carolinas.
I think Cody might have something with Kevin. Like I remember hearing something about like the down low manse or something. So I wonder if it's to that point of like, that's what the brigade was, right? With the Parachute Alliance, where these people have made very close deals with these specific people that it's like, oh, well, if I sell them out, that like, that's going to do my final 2-parter. Even though to your point, Chantel, it could be very simple as like, wait a minute, a lot of these people are in the same alliances that we're not involved in all together.
I mean, the thing is that if you are involved in almost any way, if you have some kind of alliance with this group, with any majority group in the beginning portion of the game, you can kind of like you've got a free pass for a few weeks at least, as long as you stay loyal and you don't question things. The second you start questioning things, you might be targeted. And it's kind of how these groups work. And they have other people like Christmas who work as moles, so that you can think that you're being slick and like go to Christmas and be like, so Christmas, so I think we're on the outs of this thing. We need to start to form our own thing. And then Christmas is going to be like, you only think I'm on the outs of this thing, and she's going to run that information back. And now you don't have that free pass, and you've totally screwed yourself over. So, essentially what Tyler did to get involved, because he was on the outs of this group for a long time, is that he just kind of dove in head first, and he made sure to bond with the person at the top as much as possible. And Tyler had the privilege to do so, where many wouldn't have had that opportunity. But that helped get him involved in the group and rise to the top, even though he started toward the bottom. And he's still not really at the top. But Tyler is now in a position that he might be able to, do something about this group. Whereas, Kaser and Janelle trying to rally the troops that aren't going to hear them. They're never going to have an opportunity. It's kind of one of those like I'll take them down from the inside sort of deals.
And it's tough when you have a player, whether it's Tyler or like when they make whether it's a literal final two or just a like you and me are really tight thing, because it's so easy if the other person bites like a Christmas to go, hey, we're tight and now we should probably distance and I'll be hanging out with all of these other people but I'm with you 100%. And it's just you can control so many different people if all those people bite, right? And it's tough. And then they think, well, it's okay that he's with that huge power group, because really when push comes to shove, like we'll just take him out, and it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah, and that's why Victoria was like good with Derek for so long, right? Because she's like, listen, no matter what, going back to Batman and Robin, like, listen, at the end of the day, he's going to come home to the Bat Cave, which is us. Like, he can go off with Frankie and Caleb and Cody if he wants to, but like, we're the true ride or dies.
Well, I thought she was just the mastermind, so I didn't even really think. I guess she let Derek play that game.
I guess like the difference between like how I would play these type of games and them is that like I'm always thinking of every single person's like what they would do if they won head of household, who they had to be worked with. Like I'm definitely thinking every trajectory from every person's vantage point. And so I just feel as though they're just kind of having a very narrow focus as to how they're playing this game. And they're not really considering all the potential options that could be going down. And so, yeah, I guess it's just a little bit more of a simple game than I would be playing myself.
Yeah, and I think the thing that adds difficulty is what we talked about with competitions. That if you try to go against this large group of people who are winning all the competitions, if you are, let's say, Devon and Bailey, and you would like to go against this group, you've had zero opportunity to do so in the first 3 weeks, and so. Really, if they had been saying anything against them, if they had been working against them in any way, that only puts them in, closer to the firing line, which is exactly what happened when they did start to do exactly that. So, like, you kind of do have to wait and be patient and wait for your opportunity to make the move. Now, I think part of the problem with Devon and Bailey is that they were talking about throwing competitions. I think they threw that one that Memphis won, and that was big. And I think that they were not particularly interested in winning this most recent one either. And that's exactly what Cody and Tyler want. They've said so explicitly. We just need to keep them comfortable enough that they feel like they're playing all sides and comfortable enough to throw these competitions. And then sooner or later, they're going to find out that they have no other options and they're on their way out the door. So that's the important thing. You need to be able to win competitions. And if you're not able to win competitions, then you kind of have to play ball with the people that are winning competitions until you get the chance to do something about it. So
to the point where I actually just saw that Bailey told Kaser that if she won HOH, she's probably going to put up Ian and Nicole. So like that says something that, say what you want to do again about the Tyler, Enzo, Cody sort of contingency right now. But it does seem like those people that are on the fringes are not necessarily looking immediately at them. Ironically enough, the people that are looking at them are the people in their own alliance.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's kind of what you have to hope for, because if Bailey wins an HOH and puts up Tyler and Cody and Tyler goes home, she now can't compete. And Cody and Enzo and Memphis and all of these big competition threats are all competing, and there's like 4 other dudes that she needs to contend with, and like she can't take them all out. So she kind of does have to survive long enough for them to start infighting. I mean, I really do feel like Cliff is a great example of like how to work around a big alliance when you have basically no power, because he was patient, he played ball long enough, but he planted seeds of doubt and caused them to start fighting, and then kind of weaseled his way in, and so that's kind of the game that some people have to play, but I would prefer to see people play the Vanessa version of let's break up this big alliance immediately. I'm gonna get in somebody's head immediately, and then form my own thing. So unfortunately, not everyone is as talented as Vanessa, though.
That's what I want to see, though. I want to see that. It's just like, that's what I find fun. I love the strategy part of it and getting yourself out of sticky situations and not playing scared. And if you're in the bottom, like figuring out a way to penetrate that big, massive alliance. Like I want them to be thinking that way, not just being safe and waiting to attack. It's just my style of gameplay that I like to watch. But I know the other is also effective, so can't have it all.
Yeah, you think all-stars maybe, right? It's like you always like think that. You think, well, the first time you go in, it's your chance, you're finally in the Big Brother house. You thought with all-stars, most of these people have not won the game. You'd think that we'd see more of that. People being like, well, I'm just rolling the dice, like I'm going for it. I'm not gonna go out, looking like a fool. But it just, you get in there and it's a different animal.
Yeah, and I think Rob had a great point the other day when he talked about it's also the number of players on the season, that when there are 16 people, you can amass a larger number of people in your alliance, which makes it more intimidating to have to go against. And because the game is so long and that you still have just a long time ahead of you, it discourages you from making a bold move early, because how can you maintain that momentum for another 90 days against 15 other people? So you just have less agency as a single player in the game than you do if you're one of 12. I think competitions, number of players, and then often twists can further disenfranchise people on the outs. Not this season so far.
I want a twist so badly. Like, I hate twists.
Just wait until next week.
I'm just begging for one right now.
Well, we'll see what that safety suite ends up turning into. Who knows? And people have been pushing for it to become a fake eviction room, a la Big Brother Canada 4.
I just be careful what you wish for, because their track record is like what I'm expecting from the next twist is this twist gifts the majority alliance an extra HOH per week. Like, that's genuinely what they have been in the last 7 years. So,
fake eviction, I will take that any day, and then have 2 people have to compete to come back. That'd be awesome. Because it doesn't seem like there's going to be a battle back. So I'd be into that.
The fake eviction though would be Kevin versus it
would be Janelle, and then the next week finally wins HOH, and you're like, no.
Safety suite
the whole thing where everybody would be kept. Everybody would be kept for the battle bag, and then right at the last chance, it would be like Cody or Tyler would get evicted and come right back in. Janelle, we'd be like, no.
Oh, all right. So there's also this Million Club, Nicole and Ian. There's actually now 4 Prime, which
sounds like a streaming service.
I think I've been told it is a backgammon thing potentially, or maybe, and also probably a lot of other things. And that's Nicole, Ian, Cody, and Danny. There's Devon and Bailey, who kind of have David as a third. There's Tyler and David as a bit of a duo. There's Tyler and Christmas. They call themselves the Carolinas. They're a final 2, and that's mostly that. There's also Devon and Kevin kind of have a pretty good relationship now that Kevin doesn't have Nicole. He's kind of latched on a bit more to Devon, so you could kind of count him in. He's also been talking to David a lot, so he might kind of join that crew a little bit, but Janelle and Kaser really don't like him, so I don't know. Again, that's
and it seems like the feeling's mutual from Kevin's perspective.
Yes. They found out that he was ratting them out today, and they were just like all pissed off about him all over again. It's very, very annoying. All right, let's talk about the Legacy Watch. Let's see what these players have done to their legacies in the game so far. Let's bring up here. This is what the Legacy Watch looked like last week. So if you're watching the video, you can see this on the screen. If you don't, then I'll talk you through it as we go. But this is the Legacy Watch. Down at the bottom tier is David. David down there at the very bottom, all by himself, and at the bottom by himself. He will remain as he is going to stay there at the bottom tier. He actually continued to go down in score. He is now closer to the rock bottom than he is to the low tier. So he is not doing well here, Brendan.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, he's, just by virtue of, and it was not his fault. I mean, it's losing a competition. He did come into the game with the least amount of legacy, so that's the problem, is that he needed more than anyone to come in and have things go his way and make an impact and not be nominated week 2 and, not have those conversations with Devon, and where he's just so obvious she's trying to work with him, and he's just so, it's tough for him because David seems like a great guy, and he had that nice moment with Nicole last week, and stuff like that. But the game hasn't been enough to get out of where he started, right?
I mean, it's tough because David came in with the most undiscovered potential, quite literally, because he has never played the game of Big Brother before. He was essentially subletting the Big Brother house for 3 weeks as part of Camp Comeback. And so coming in, you're like, wow, he's the big X factor. This is the first time David's ever been nominated, and he sucked. He sucked so badly when he was nominated, to the point like we're like, you are actively doing your game, and had things gone a prospectively different way, if people like Cody and Enzo were like, you know what, I think we should keep Nicole A. Like, why is David talking about a guys alliance when there's not really one going on right now? He could have talked his way out the door, and
Mike,
that's insane.
You need to calm down. I have safeguards in place.
Listen, I won't listen to the word safeguard unless I have some crab legs in my hands, okay? Do that to me. And so I think that it's like the unfortunate, no matter if you're rating these players on what they did this past week or like how the reputation is, for David, it's unfortunately, to Brendan's point, like a meeting in the middle where I think both parties agree he's bottom tier here.
Chantal, you need to get Mike to calm down. He's ruining my game right now.
Well, he just doesn't know how to play at all. He's never watched, as far as I can tell, a full season. He doesn't know about gameplay in this capacity. And so it's just like, he doesn't know anything about the game, that he can't be playing well. It's kind of impossible. And he doesn't have like an innate gift to understand how to maneuver the game. And so I think that no matter what he did, it was going to be the wrong choice for him to do in his game so far. And he doesn't really have any of his own agency as in what's going on in the game. And so like, you really can't rate him high, at all. He's just not doing anything for his game or against it. Well, it's doing more against his game, I guess. He's not doing well, in my opinion. I think he's on the wrong season. I mean, I wanted to see him come back. I thought he definitely deserved an opportunity, but he's just too much of a fish out of water here. He has these people that really know how to play and really want to win. And I think his cause is amazing, but I just don't think that he has the ability to get there.
Yes. All right. So this is the audience has voted, by the way. This is the audience's decision for the Legacy Watch. This is their judging based on how they feel the legacy of each player is: bottom tier, low tier, middle tier, upper tier, top tier, and in the Big Brother pantheon of players. So they rated David there in the bottom tier. And next on the list is Nicole Anthony, who has fallen down, but stays in the low tier. She's not bottom tier, but she is at the bottom of the low tier. And that is where I imagine she will sit for a while. I don't know if I see much of a redemption bounce for Nicole Anthony after the week that she had, Mike.
I mean, maybe it depends if we're incorporating social media into this. You know, if she does, I know she should understandably decompress from the show, but I mean, like some of these people, these pre-jurors have like earned a lot of clout for coming onto social media and really trashing the people that others don't like. So I do wonder if, I mean, listen, Nicole Anthony would not be the person to come on and trash people, but like if she does come on and like sounds genuinely sorry for what she did, I do wonder if that also kept her out of the bottom tier. Because again, she is somebody who really did not help her image whatsoever this week in what she ended up doing. We talked about how I think, you know, her rationale was understandable, but her read was completely incorrect. And I don't want to prognosticate for the listeners. I wonder if part of it was because she sounded so remorseful after the fact that it was like, okay, well, you learned your lesson a little bit. So I'm not going to say you're like a bottom tier player, but it's still pretty damn low.
Yeah, I think she has to go like the very self-deprecating route of like I don't know if you guys have seen like Ryan Ballantine from Big Brother Canada on Twitter, but like people will constantly rag on him for evicting Andrew, like, and rightfully so. And every time they do, he responds like, "You are 1,000% right. I apologize to Andrew every day because it was such a terrible decision, and I am so sorry." And I feel like that's kind of like, you just have to own this for the rest of your life. That like, I was such an idiot. I can't believe I did that. Everyone is completely right to bag on me. And you just kind of, I feel like that's the way forward. Am I right, Chantel?
Yeah, you are definitely right. And, you know, I think she didn't get the super low, the most bottom tier is because that she's already starting to take that position. Like it's kind of like she's realizing, oh my God, I was so wrong. And she's comfortable with expressing that. And I think like with her own podcast, she's going to talk probably a lot about how like, wow, I was so wrong. Wow, I was so wrong. And I think that continuing with that narrative, I think that people might be a little more forgiving. But I don't think that she's going to be any higher than she is right now.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Just barely above Nicole Anthony, we have Kevin Campbell.
Oh, boy.
Fall from grace here for Kevin, who did fall down from last week as well. Started the season, preseason, he was in the upper tier. This is brutal,
no.
Brendan.
This is rough. I mean, he's below Christmas now. I mean, if you would have told people that, you know,
Christmas steadily rising up the ranks.
I know. It's tough. I mean, it's just tough. I think, you know, like we said, getting nominated in the first week put Kevin on the back foot, but he has not been able to get back into any kind of situation of power. So, you know, Kevin may be here for a while. So if Kevin is one of those people that if there's a civil war of Danny and Tyler, if Kevin takes control of the game at some point, he has the opportunity to rise up again. But yeah, if he kind of stays in the zone that he's in now and isn't kind of able to get back any agency, I don't know if he'll be able to get out of the low tier.
I'm going to make a bold proclamation here. I think Kevin is the Christmas of the season, which is crazy because Christmas is on the season. He is a very, like, he's a weaker player who, you know, escaped the first eviction, who I think is pretty easily pliable, gets very riled up. I have been very turned off by, you talked about this today, Taryn, just like how needlessly personal his comments get. Like, I know that he was kind of known as a bit of a, you know, a fun, snarky person in Big Brother 11, but it really is not showing a great side to him. And his reads are kind of off as well. He's taken that, you know, he's taken some delusion. And so I do wonder if, to that point, if someone's going to try to scoop him up and be like, oh, this guy's going to be a hanger on. Like, this guy's really easy to pick up. Kevin has put himself out there as a free agent. And I totally agree with Brendan. And I think, Taryn, you put out this point as well. I think Kevin Campbell's in here for the long haul. So maybe by pure longevity's sake, he could possibly have a bounce back here. But right now, like, he is just ticking so many people off. And I think so many people had like the Tyra Banks, we were rooting for you idea in their head preseason. Like, he has just been in free fall.
He's one piggyback away from going full Christmas.
With Kevin, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be able to change his standing with the audience, because he's not somebody I want to like and want to root for and hope that he's doing well, because all of his little gossipy negative chit chats, it doesn't seem like it's helping his game at all. It seems it's actually like ruining his game or making it more difficult for himself. And so, the audience wants to root for someone. If it's going to be the underdog, we want to like them. We want to root for him. I just don't think he's likable enough for us to want to see, be happy for his success. And so I don't see him moving up very much further than where he is right now. I can't really see him unless he just decides to be kind of nice and start playing well. But other than that, I think that he's kind of a lost cause here. If you could just
start doing everything right again, that would be. No, my prediction for Kevin, and I think I said this last week, and I don't think this is definitely going to happen because he could easily go home or something like that. But I think there is definitely a chance that Kevin does make it far. And if he does, because this is what happens every season, is that a big fan favorite will go home pre-jury and everyone online will say, oh my God, has it ever happened before that somebody who went home pre-jury won fan favorite? Because it's definitely happening this season because we all love this person so much. And then when it comes time to vote for fan favorite, that person is not even in the top 3 because they have been forgotten. Like that, and it will probably be different this season because it is All Stars, and we will not forget Janelle or Kaser. But what happens is the game progresses. And you start to perception is reality, and the only people left in the house are. That's your whole world. And if Kevin becomes a late game underdog, I'm willing to bet, go back in time and listen to this podcast in the future when this is happening. People are going to be like, he wasn't that bad. I mean, I didn't like him too much at the start, but he's really grown on me lately. He's actually, I think he's reformed his ways. I think he's actually doing really well now. And the only difference will be he doesn't have Kaser and Janelle to rag on anymore. And he's now the only underdog left to root for.
Or now he's ragging on Nicole Franzel and ragging on Danny. And it's oh yes, go after him, King Kevin. They deserve it.
If it can happen to Jackson Mickey, it can happen to Kevin Campbell.
Amen.
I mean, he puts Franzel and Cody on the block any point, It's
I mean, that's the Jessica Milagros bump, right? You put up 2 disliked people on the block and it's my God, where was Kevin this season? This is our savior.
This is all very wishful thinking.
I feel like it's pessimistic. I feel like I'm looking at humanity through a lens that is very unfortunate.
It's not possible. I can't really see it happening. He doesn't have, I don't know. I don't see it, but I will eat my words if I am wrong down the road. If I'm oh my God, top tier. I don't know. I can't imagine it.
Like I said, it's not a guarantee. He has to get to that position first, and he might go home first, or he might not even be he might never win a competition, just be dragged along. And in that case, I don't think it'll happen. But all he needs is one late game HOH, start trash talking the right people, and easy. I think this could happen. All right, let's talk about the next person on the list, and that is, in fact, Christmas Abbott, who has jumped above both Nicole and Kevin to land a spot high up in the low tier. Still in the low tier, but Christmas started the preseason the only person in the bottom tier. Then, last week, she jumped David and landed in the low tier. This week, she has now jumped Nicole and Kevin and is toward the top of the low tier. Christmas steadily rising up the ranks of the Legacy Watch, Chantal.
I mean, I'm not a Christmas fan, but she has been doing a little bit better. She's won a competition. She is locked in with, the power in the house. She has a final 2 with Tyler, who will take her to the end. It's his Casey right now. And so he wants another woman that's going to be able to do physical competitions, but maybe some of the more female, bottom center of gravity kind of competitions, she might be able to win these things. So I think that her being really in lockstep with Tyler is helping her move up the ranks, because she's not that she has a good read of the house, because it really was so frustrating when I was hearing her talk to Nicole last week about like staying in the alliance or whatever. But I do feel that she is getting better in the game a little bit, even though I'm not loving her.
I mean, Christmas with the super long play, naming her child Loyal so that she would have a reputation for being loyal when she went to All Stars. I mean, that's pretty baller right there.
And now she has a child, right?
Yes.
She has a baby starfish as part of her punishment. So now it all makes sense. I think Christmas has been staying steady due to the fact that she is not sinking her game purposely as much as like David and Kevin and Nicole have. She's someone who's just like has been staying the course. And I think to a lot of people's point, that means that like she's going to remain relatively steady here. You know, the only time we really saw Crazy Christmas come out this season was, I think she kind of went off on Keisha this past week during that last minute campaigning. She like told him his game was sloppy, which again is not a great look. But I think that unlike a lot of other people so far, Christmas has not disappointed because she hasn't done anything really to tank her game at this point.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Did she jump, or have other people just fall?
It's more so. It's like
jumped.
It's the Steve Bradbury thing, right? The speed skater where like everyone else tripped over themselves and he won the gold medal by default. Like that's sort of his Christmas right now.
Well, she did win a competition like that. I remember.
But yes, she has actually risen, even though it is mostly that other people fell. So after Christmas, we have Memphis staying above Christmas, but he has managed to squeeze back up into the middle tier.
Wow.
Away from the low tier last week. Yes. Memphis, who started the game in the preseason in the upper tier, just barely in the upper tier. Last week fell down to the low tier as HOH. People were not fond of that HOH reign. And remember, that was the Saturday. So it was, he did not, I think, fully reap the rewards of not backdooring Janelle and Kaser at that point. But this week he has squeezed back up into the middle tier for Memphis, which I do think is pretty appropriate. I mean, again, like if you look at past history, you know, being one half of the Renegades there's a legacy there at the very least. And also, I do think, well, non-conventional and douchey, his gameplay has been all right, actually. He's actually in a pretty decent place here, Chantal.
Well, it seems like his only real target, or the person that was only targeting him, is David. And if that's the only person that's really coming after you right now, I mean, people are kind of annoyed with his head of household, not allowing people in his room and not really talking game with a lot of people. Fine, he was kind of annoying, but you know, David's the only one that's targeting him, so that's kind of okay. So he kind of came out with that without any bruises from his head of household reign. So he's in an okay position, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how the hell that happened though. It's like everyone knew, like you're playing both sides. Like we see in these confessionals, everyone's saying, "What the hell is Memphis doing?" But I think due to time, and again, I think partially due to just all the smoke that Kaser and Janelle and Nicole Anthony were making at the end of this week, obfuscated Memphis a little bit to the point where, you know, when Tyler wins HOH, he's the one that's most sketched out by Memphis. And he's certainly talked in the beginning of the week a bit about like, okay, maybe I'll take a shot at Memphis. But those people just cause so much attention onto them that it's like, all right, I guess we won't keep, you know, we'll keep Memphis for now. So I can understand the bounce a little bit, especially like you said, Taryn, that Saturday, that was the day after his quote unquote infamous nomination speech against David and Nicole. So like, I think it makes sense that the opinion has sort of rounded up on him a bit.
Yeah, it's just sort of the result of him, you know, not tanking his game, essentially. Right? I mean,
we keep talking about, or they keep talking about on the feeds at the very least, that like people keep manifesting opposing alliances. Like they keep predicting that other people are in alliances that they're not actually in yet, and then those alliances form as though they manifested them into existence. Memphis does the opposite. he manifested an alliance for himself, and through his own sheer will and like, I trust you guys, seems to be holding it together, which I think speaks something to the game in the sense that if you are going to project like an idea of what is happening in the game, you might as well project one that's good for you, because sometimes you can form these things into existence just by speaking them aloud. And when Memphis talks about the committee, and you can tell how excited he is, and he talks about trusting the committee, like, even though these people don't like him, and they don't want to work with him, they're like, but he's not going to go against us. He loves this alliance. Like, this is his baby. And so they have no reason to target him. And he's free to play the other side because they don't like him and they see that he's playing the other side. But he loves the committee. So he's not going to go after us. There's bigger fish to fry. So it's in a weird way, he kind of works. He has manifested his own alliance that shouldn't exist.
Yeah, it's very much Caleb and the Bomb Squad, right? Where like he was
yes.
so dedicated to the Bomb Squad. It's like, okay, well, we don't need to get rid of him because he's technically loyal to us. He just doesn't realize that there's so much more to this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think also because of the fact that he won HOH right after he created the committee. I don't think it's named yet, but like he created the group. And so that made it easy to solidify that as something as being real. I mean, because I don't know if it would have stuck as well if he wasn't head of household that week.
Based on the TV episodes, you know, he's going to watch the show back and go, oh, the committee was running the house.
Yeah.
I know, they only confirmed his narrative.
All right. So just above Memphis, we have Keisha staying put here in the middle tier. She did rise a little bit over the last week, but not too big of a bounce. On Survivor Winners at War, what we saw in the Legacy Watch was that you'd often see a player drop when they were voted out, but then they'd slowly bounce back up to where they had been previously. I was wondering if that would happen here. It hasn't happened so far with Keisha, but that may be because we're not seeing Extinction, Edge of Extinction, and we're not seeing her on the screen anymore. So she may be locked in place here, or it might just be too soon, and we'll have to like wait and see. Also, she hasn't really reappeared on social media. Like, I think the person who is very aggro on Twitter is still not her, I think. So she hasn't really been able to make a reappearance at all yet. So people are just still remembering her as the non-entity that she was in the first week. But very curious to see if she does end up moving anywhere in the future. After Keisha is Devon.
Wow.
Who has fallen out of the top tier, back down into the middle tier after this week, where she has made a lot of mistakes in the game. And at the same time, a lot of wonderful personal moments. Character-wise, again, I feel like she is top-notch, but I think a lot of people are disappointed in the gameplay this week, Chantal.
Well, I think that with Devon, Janelle clocked her as someone that's like an information spreader. So she just gains information and spreads it. And she doesn't really have any intention with how she uses it. So she gets herself in these situations that are not good for her game with the information that she gained. Like, she doesn't know how to use what she kind of gathers. And so I think that this is what the audience is seeing, is that she's not actually a good game player. She's just good at gaining information.
Yeah, and the thing is that she's also very transparent. Like, essentially what she's been doing with these tests is she's been essentially sending everybody glitter boxes, you know, those exploding glitter boxes, and they open it up.
And she tells them, don't open the box.
Yeah, and then they're covered in glitter, and they're like, why did you do that? They're like, I wanted to see if you would open the box. It's like, well, I did, and now I'm covered in glitter. So
now
why did you do that? Exactly.
Hey, guys. Look at the glitter. I figured it out.
Listen, I forgot it. I solved the puzzle. They're covered. They opened the box. They're covered in glitter. It's tough because I totally agree with you that, like, I think Matt, made a good point as to, again, what constitutes this legacy loss, as to whether you're talking about their character, whether you're talking about their gameplay. And one of the other reasons why I really want Keisha to stay is because, like, my God, that conversation between him and Devon last night, from what we saw, was all sorts of incredible. I know that Survivor is much more focused on the social experiment aspect of the show than Big Brother, but, like, man, I love getting those types of conversations. And they're unfortunately few and far between, but that was so so great to watch. And she had that amazing, DRs with David, still unquestionably one of the best personalities in the DR. But it's tough to ignore the stuff that she did, to the point where she really has set herself up on the hit list for a good amount of these people. And depending on the right combo of HOHs, to a point that you made before, Taryn, could go as soon as next week. And I think that's a sizable hit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I talked about like Devon in the puzzle, like that she just wants to figure out the puzzle, and then like I think part of the problem is like she's the person who, like, when she figures out the puzzle, she's like, look guys, I did it, look, this is the this is how you do the puzzle. But then like part of the problem this season is that like she hasn't even finished the puzzle yet, but she gets like a piece of it and she's like, I found a piece of it, guys. It's like, no. It's not good. Above Devon, you have Bailey in the same spot. No movement here for Bailey. I expected to see Bailey continue to rise. I think that, again, people looking at gameplay, unfortunately, in some part due to Devon's fall in the gameplay, Bailey has also kind of, her position in the game has gone down a little bit. But she did not go down in the legacy. She stays about the same, just did not continue the rise here, Brendan.
Yeah, well, I think Bailey, and all these things that we've talked about, these scenarios, it does feel like Devon will be the one that will potentially go home. And so I think it kind of makes sense that Bailey's in the same spot, because we know she has talent for the game, and we just kind of have to see which way it goes. I mean, if Devon does go out the door, we just kind of have to see, is she able to kind of make that run and talk about, like we've talked about with all these people who aren't in the core power structure, who are going to be the ones that can shake it up a little bit later, who can take advantage of the opening. And I think we know Bailey has the talent to do it, but we haven't seen it yet. So it kind of makes sense to me that she'd still be in the same spot, because we're not bracing for her to go out the door, but we don't know yet what's going to happen.
I don't know. I feel like had the couple of tries and couple of guys moment happened a couple days before, I honestly do feel like she might have had a shot at the lower part of the upper tier here, because I've seen, and probably we can talk about that probably a little bit more when we get to the Nicole F of it all, because I'm very intrigued to see her rating after this week. But I think that the consensus I've been seeing has been a lot of like, yes, get her Bailey, or like Bailey did nothing wrong, especially when you had Danny approaching her being like, oh, she thought you were being aggressive, which is an entirely different topic on its own. So I do wonder if there was going to be a little bit of a bump there for Bailey. But again, that all happened like last night into this morning. So maybe there was not as much of an effect going into tonight.
I'm thinking that maybe it's because she's kind of been frenemies with Janelle, and I think that the audience right now is really trying to support Janelle and support Keisha, and so she's nice to Janelle and then just runs off and goes and badmouths to Janelle to the other people.
Out that meeting, yeah.
Oh, that's true.
So I think that people just have a bad taste in their mouth about her gameplay right now. I think once Janelle is gone, she'll be able to raise a little bit, because the fan favorite is not being tarnished by Bailey.
Mm-hmm. I do want to say, like the couple of tries, couple of guys thing, like it is very funny, but it keeps getting misrepresented. I just want to, like, for anyone that only saw it on Twitter, I want you guys to know like who's really at fault here, because like, look, I think it's hilarious. I do. I'm down to dunk on Nicole all the time. Nicole was more upset. So Day was telling Nicole, like, yeah, Bailey was pissed off at you. Nicole was more upset, I think, that she was like, oh, she thought that I was trying to ruin your game, Day. That's not what I was trying to do. And it hurt my feelings that she said that thing. Nicole also says in that conversation, I don't blame Bailey. It's not her fault. She misread the situation. I'm just like, I don't want to joke around about that anymore, because I don't want people to think I'm trying to ruin your game, Day. It's Danny who then takes it and is like, Bailey was being so mean. Bailey was being aggressive. Like it was Danny is much more at fault here. Like again, Nicole is annoying. She cries a lot, yes, but in this situation, I see things sometimes and I'm like, oh, it didn't really play out that way, and I have to say something, even though people will be like, oh, you're ruining our fun.
And the tough thing is that also Danny made a very similar joke 5 minutes beforehand. She said, "Showmance's, showmance's work to get you to the end, right? Right, Nicole." And I think that, like, again, it just really sucks. And again, like I keep going back to that aggressive comment. Like that really sticks to me. It just feels so, whether purposely or not, just a very biased remark. And it really, really sucks to have that coded language happen. And again, I'm not sure if they meant it that way, but to have Dani stir this pot so much, while it may be an interesting part of her game, it really is not a good look for her.
Absolutely. And it kind of rings alongside with when I was saying that maybe this is their opportunity to now flip this and make them become a target, kind of with that, her being aggressive now, with them maybe having a showman's now, with them, hurting Nicole Franzel now. Like, it's just, I feel like there's a big thing that's happened with those three people that will make it easy for them to be targeted sooner than later.
Mm-hmm. And Dani is and again, because like in that sort of like is what I was talking about, where like Dani made a similar comment. I really feel like Nicole was more upset that she thought that she was trying to ruin Day's game, whereas I do think that is what Dani was trying to do. And then Dani does go to Tyler and she tells the story like, oh yeah, Bailey was like Bailey's cracking, and we need to watch out for that, and she is trying to use it in that way. I have not seen Nicole do that at all. Nicole was interested in squashing it. We're kind of directing in our anger in the wrong direction, I think, in this particular instance. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Speaking of, the next person on the list is, in fact, Nicole Franzel, who has fallen below Cody and Enzo, but just barely clings on to the upper tier. Has not quite fallen down into the middle tier yet, but she seems to be on her way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's the weird thing, is that you guys have talked about this almost begrudgingly. Like, Nicole Franzel is great at what she does. The weird thing is that what she does is a bit of emotional manipulation. It is a bit of like, I do want people to pity me a bit, because when they pity me unconsciously, they are supporting me in a manner of speaking. And damn, it works well. It works so well. And Nicole is in like a pretty darn good position right now. I'd have to imagine that part of this is the Janelle trashing, which has only sped up from here.
If we want to talk about like Nicole victimizing herself, you don't need to go to the other situation, because that was more Dani. You can talk about what she's doing today, which is, I just know that Janelle is gonna come at me. She's gonna get crazy. Like, I just know what's gonna happen. What am I gonna do? I'm so scared. And Janelle hasn't done anything yet.
Yeah, it really is like just her trying to, again, also build up Janelle as this big threat as well, a reason why to get rid of her. So it's a great tactic. It's not very fun to watch unless you're someone who like does the Stanford prison experiments for fun. It's a little, so I think that, again, I think it's a respectable game to a certain extent, but I do think like the emotionality of it particularly can be just like very draining to watch. So I'm of two minds personally about it, because like I do want to appreciate good gameplay that's putting her in a solid position. At the same time, it can be really tough to watch.
And the point is that in this game, you go ahead, Giselle.
Oh no, I just kind of had a question, because what actually was the catalyst for her to start going in on Janelle from the beginning? Because if what's been coming up now is the whole Amazing Race drama that doesn't really have anything to do with Janelle directly, it's mostly with the Riley sisters. And then I saw a tweet that I'm assuming, what's his name? Victor, that he posted, like, showing like some conversations that they had back and forth, being like, don't worry, like what you didn't think, like I love the Riley sisters, but I'm not choosing any sides, and kind of just like absolving herself from really caring about that particular situation.
That's probably why she was invited to the wedding.
Probably. So I'm just wondering why it's come back up again, that the Amazing Race drama is what is the cause of the rift between Franzel and Janelle.
I do think that's a good question, and because again, it's so funny to me. Like, we got night one feeds, but like I think collectively as the community, as the live feed audience, have still fallen for like the same thing that they do in the house, which is like we have started telling ourselves stories about what happened in night one of the feeds instead of actually going back and looking. The only people that were targeting Janelle right out of the gate were Nicole Franzel, and Danny. And Danny is doing what a lot of people were thinking that Tyler was doing, which is Danny is saying, I wanted to work with Janelle. I never said Janelle's name at all until she started to, like, that is a complete lie. That is definitely gaslighting. Nicole Franzel came into the game. I have no idea what Danny's beef is. No idea. We have to imagine it had something to do with the pre-gaming. But Nicole Franzel, according to Nicole Franzel, said to Tyler early on that basically she was cool with Janelle. The Amazing Race thing happened. She was still cool with Janelle. And then in the preseason leading up to the game, she found out, she and CBS, according to her, found out that Janelle was helping spread rumors about her in the pregame, and we heard many of these rumors. And we saw Janelle on the feed say that she was told by Dan that Nicole got Derek kicked off the season. So we know that she at least had heard these rumors and probably spread them at least a little bit. But Nicole is under the impression that it was Janelle and Rachel, I think, as a team, kind of spreading rumors about her in the preseason, talking specifically about crying to production. And so she came in thinking Janelle is against me. We didn't really hear anything from Janelle about Nicole Franzel at the start of the game until a little bit later when she started talking badly about her. But at that point, there's reasonable doubt that she might have heard that Nicole was coming after her. And then it wasn't until recently that Janelle said, yeah, the beef started with the Amazing Race when she backstabbed my friend. So that is like the extent of what I think we know for sure in terms of what they have said on the feeds about this beef.
They could have pretty much gotten over that pretty quickly. It didn't need to be this big thing, I don't think. Unless it's super true that Janelle was spreading these rumors. Or was it, do you think it happened? Like, do you think that
somebody
did it?
Somebody spread rumors for sure. I don't know if Janelle was the cause of them. It might have been that Janelle was told things, like, it might have been like Dan heard this rumor and Dan passed it along to Janelle and Janelle passed it along to somebody else. And then that somebody told Nicole, hey, Janelle told me this. And then Nicole was like, I knew Janelle, who's best friends with Rachel Riley, would do this to me. Or it could be that Janelle was spread out. We have no idea. No idea what was going to go on.
I mean, it makes me think that it's true now. So
I will be intrigued to see in tomorrow night's episode, because apparently during the have not choosing ceremony, again, it's always exaggerated in the retelling. Apparently there was a thing between Nicole and Janelle, because I believe she picked her to be a have not for this week. So we'll see if any comments are made or if it's going to be a big nothing burger. But yeah, I mean, it's a conflict that keeps getting stoked. And she is really doing a great job of just saying that Janelle is for working for the good of the house, I don't feel safe with Janelle being here. And so it's Karening a little bit, but she's getting rid of someone who is probably most vehemently going after her. And so it is kind of a net win for her, even if it's not the most digestible way of doing so.
Yeah. And somebody pointed out quickly in the chat that I was wrong slightly there, that Janelle was talking about Nicole in night 2, and it was night 1 or night 2 that she mentioned the Nicole rumors. So probably before she heard that Nicole was coming after her. So there definitely was some kind of tension from the pregame from both sides, but it seemed like it was much more on the Nicole side than Janelle at first, at least. Go ahead, Brendan.
Oh, yeah, no, the point I was just going to kind of what Mike was saying before in here is just I think that we've all talked about Nicole's gameplay in this way. And I do think this season is the season where it behooves her the most, because she came in as one of only 2 winners. And I do think that making yourself emotionally in need of other people, even as she's making this move to get rid of Janelle, but it's coming from this place of weakness, right? This place of, I'm scared of Janelle. I need your help to protect me. And even though it's not fun to watch, I do think it is to be noted that that's a pretty good strategy for someone who comes in with the baggage of being a winner to do, right? Because, and maybe we can talk a little bit about this with Ian too. It's these players, they're winners and they should be these big neon targets. And I think by putting themselves in a position where they feel like they need help, or they're it's like the whole body posture thing. It's like when they feel like they're asking for help, they sort of mask what they have, which is a win.
They talk all the time about how Ian is a winner. All the time they talk about Ian is a winner. We can't sleep on Ian. We have to watch out for Ian. He's a winner. It's never brought up that Nicole is a winner. It's never brought up.
I mean, I think it should say something that even the most defeatist, pessimistic person on this season are being like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. Nicole Franzel is going to be our first 2-time Big Brother winner, which is crazy to say. And like the fact that people are saying that, again, it speaks towards, I think, why she's still in this position, despite her rating falling a bit. I will be intrigued to see if Janelle does leave next week. Again, we'll see what happens with if she's still going to continue the Janelle talk after this. But depending on what tactics she chooses moving forward, I think that the variability of where she goes from here is going to be very interesting with this particular rating.
All right. So above Nicole Franzel, we have Cody Calafiore, who has fallen below Enzo. He had a slight fall from last week. People a little bit lower on Cody than they had been initially. He had risen from the preseason just very slightly last week. He is back down to where he was from the preseason. He has barely moved all season long in terms of his legacy. People feel very similarly about him now as they did before, Brendan.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point he's playing a pretty similar game. I mean, I think so much of Cody, and I think even there's a little bit of this with Christmas, any of these people who kind of got to the end as sort of the B person, so much of their legacy this season is going to be whether or not they actually fix those mistakes. Because I think we'll see if these people get to the end of the game again, but they kind of had no realistic shot to win again or make those wrong moves. I just don't think no matter how well they played before, I think we as fans are just going to be a little disappointed again. I think for them to really jump in the legacy watch and not kind of just stay where they are, if it's Christmas, it's Memphis, it's Cody, they really have to improve. They it's not enough to just be like, oh, they've made it to the end twice. Maybe that's enough to keep them from the bottom and lower tiers. But yeah, we really need to see from Cody, we need to see him actually do more than just kind of get in the Lions, ride it out, be loyal, all this different stuff.
I'll be intrigued to see next week's rating because, again, I don't know how much him winning Veto affected these ratings as well. And I wonder if him winning his second competition of the season, and that will help or hurt the way people think about him.
When I think of his gameplay, I just think of like, who cares? Like, I don't care. Like, you win the veto. Okay, who cares? You're not going to use it. Like, it's just like, who cares? I know what you're going to do with your head of household. So it's just, there's nothing going on. There's nothing happening. I can pretty much predict his gameplay. If he gets power or if people he's aligned with is going to get power. So it's just like a meh, whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. All right. Above Cody, this is a big one. Danny. Falling all the way from the top tier, third place in the top tier below Tyler, falling all the way down below Enzo in the upper tier.
Wow.
Big fall from grace for Danny, who started in third place overall, maintained that position last week, is now down in seventh overall and in the upper tier below Enzo. This has been brutal for Danny, who is playing pretty well. In fact, I think this is probably the best she's ever played the game, which is proof that gameplay is not necessarily king in the Legacy Watch, but her legacy has definitely been tarnished. The number of people I have seen that were like there is, at this point, there should be Danny Stan support groups because, former Danny Stan support groups, I should say, because a lot of people came into the season like, Danny's one of my favorite players of all time, and they are currently watching her on the season, and they were like, no, what have I become?
Well, I think the fact that even Evil Dick has not been speaking very favorably about her gameplay, I think that has a lot to do with how she's being received and perceived by the audience.
To be fair, he said he was being mean about her in season 13 too.
But it was Twitter is rampant then. Like, I don't know, but I think that that's really going to be affecting, how people are perceiving her. It's like even her dad's not really rooting for her and thinking that she's making some good choices. So she might do better later on in the season when she can actually start winning some competitions and like being a little bit more out in front with her gameplay. But right now she just kind of seems like a mean girl that's kind of jealous of Janelle and latching on to Franzel because she's not intimidated by her and just listening to what the boys want to have happen in the game. And so it's not really that appealing.
I don't know. I don't get it.
Okay.
I don't get it. No, I think that, I don't know. I think it's that if Danny does come in here in third place, if I'll be honest, I think it's because of her perception from Big Brother 13. And I think it's because she turned against the veterans. Specifically that she was one of the people, she went out and she was one of the people that got rid of Brendan twice, was vehemently targeting Jeff, who despite winning a fan favorite that season was definitely not a fan favorite overall. And so I think people came in being like, oh yeah, we love, the shocker, awkward type of person who like was not afraid to take shots. And I think we forget that Danny Donato has always kind of been a mean girl. She was not very well liked in season 8. She really was not. She kicked some butt in that game, but she was definitely not very well liked. And so I do think that part of her personality has kind of stayed the same over time. I think it really does depend, to Chantel's point, of like, where are those comments being directed towards? If it's against someone that we don't like in that moment, we love her. If it's not, then we do not care for her so much. And so I would still put her in the top tier because, again, I think her character and just the role that she plays in the franchise, I still think is not necessarily been affected with 2 weeks of Big Brother 22. But I cannot question the fans who are understandably frustrated with, to quote Devon, these are the people that she chooses to lay with, and that she, she chooses to send her comments out to one of the most universally beloved players in Big Brother history.
It's just the push and pull. I feel like what we talked a little about it with Nicole too, with Nicole Franzel. It's like there's gameplay and then there's how we feel about their tactics and how we feel about the kinds of things that they're saying and what they're doing. And I think that comes into when we're talking about legacy, how we're going to feel about these players at the end of the season. That stuff's undeniable. I mean, the comments that someone might make or the way. That's right.
Especially given recent events, maybe that should not be put out there.
Yeah, that's part of it. That's all part of it. How we judge these things.
Yeah, I mean, I do think we're still seeing like Danny from season 13. Like, she's the same. Let's be real. Yeah. She is the same person. All the way down to she is now talking about turning on her alliance. She wants to go after Tyler. Like, I was going to say, like, if she flipped on this alliance, people would probably love her again. And that's kind of what she wants to do. She wants to go after Tyler. Now, I think the problem is that people want her to go after Cody. They want her to go after Nicole. And, people aren't necessarily the biggest fans of Tyler sometimes, but I think they generally prefer Tyler to Cody and Nicole. So the fact that she's going after Tyler, and that will probably only benefit Nicole and Cody, probably won't save her from the ire of the fans this time. So that's where Danny is. Above Danny, just barely. But above Danny, we do have Enzo at the top, or in the upper tier here, the top of the upper tier here for Enzo, who is going to have a rise. Enzo, who started all the way down in the middle tier. He actually started at the bottom of the middle tier, has risen. Last week he got up into the upper tier, just at the bottom of the upper tier, and this week he is now at the top of the upper tier, steadily rising for Enzo in the same way that Christmas is steadily rising. Enzo is steadily rising, which makes some sense because they're both in very good, safe spots in the house. Chantel.
Well, I'm actually thinking that Enzo, if Janelle and Keisha are not part of the equation, I think that Enzo is actually going to be my winner pick. Because I think that he's actually playing a pretty good game. He's likable. He's funny. He's been winning some competitions, and he's not out in front as a major threat to anybody. And so I think that he's going to have a similar trajectory as he did in his past season, where he'll get to the final 3. And I think that because the competitions are more likely going to favor his strength and his ability, that he might even win that one and be able to take himself to the final 2. So right now, if how things are going the way they think that they're going, I'm wanting an Enzo win, and that's my projection. So I'm thinking that's good that he's moving up.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if he ekes his way into the top tier over the next couple weeks, because I think that what has really amounted to the increase in favorability in terms of his rating is the fact that I think he entered this season as kind of a clown. I think, you guys, you and Maggie and Mary talked about this, Taryn, about how, like, yes, he was part of one of the most successful alliances in Big Brother history, but like, you think much more about Hayden or Matt Hoffman if in the brigade than you do Enzo. And I think sort of actually what we were talking about with Cody, the fact that he was able to come in and sort of do the same thing, but someone like Enzo actually marks much more favorably because he was not really seen initially as like the one who was really one of the brains behind the operation, unlike someone like a Cody or a Memphis. And so it's weird that like facing the exact same situation again has sort of stagnated some people's ratings, or in Memphis's decreases some people's ratings, but in Enzo's purely increased it just based on the way he was perceived from his first season.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all right. So above Enzo, we have Ian Terry in the top tier, falling behind Kaser. So Ian has just barely maintained that top tier. He was at the bottom of the top tier to start. He then decreased in value a bit last week, and this week again just barely holding on that line in the top tier. I think overall people have seen Ian and they've been like, this is not quite what I remember, but I love him. So that's, I think, been keeping him up there, Brendan.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ian is a super likable player, and I think he's been fun this season too. I mean, I think kind of like what you were saying before, Taryn, his threat level has never really decreased to the point where we can see that total daylight, but he's in a tough spot because, like I said, I still feel like if he can just keep surviving in a position of not a lot of strength, you'd like to hope that at some point they might be able to see him as just another player in the game. And maybe that's just wishful thinking, but that's really his path, at this point, I feel, is he just has to hope that he keeps surviving and eventually that threat level lowers.
I would worry that he's going to be latched onto Nicole Franzel because his best shot of winning would be sitting beside her. And so if he's always protecting her and keeping her safe, I don't know if he's ever going to be able to rise up unless he gets to the final 2. And then maybe at that point it will shift. But up until then, I just would most likely see it going downward just because we're not really favoring Nicole Franzel right now. And they have to kind of stick together, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is with this new 4 Prime alliance, if this is going to be Ian's quack pack, where he has sort of been brought in under the guise of this is the alliance when it's really not. And if Ian is sort of being brought in as a loyal soldier for an alliance that truly does not have his back completely, how is that going to affect his rating? And again, it depends on if you're playing the exact same game as you did last time. It really depends on whether you rise or fall. I do also feel like this being a big week for Kaser from a popularity perspective probably also squeezed Ian a bit down by comparison.
Yes. All right. So above Ian, we do, in fact, have Kaser. And it really was more Kaser rising than Ian falling in this particular instance. Kaser in the top tier. He started the season at toward the bottom, just above Memphis in the upper tier. And he has been steadily rising or it was more of a big jump last week and then a smaller jump this week. But Kaser here in the top tier, this is where Kaser needs to be, and I think that he just needs to continue to rise as he shows off the fact that without Janelle, he is the greatest of all time, and he'll eventually make the Big Brother Pantheon, Chantal.
Yes, I think that, we love watching Kaser's game so much, and whether or not it's been working in his favor or not, we want to see these people come back and play the games that we enjoy watching them play. And he's been doing that. Yes, he's been received wrong information and has been having bad reads, but he's still playing the game that we want to see him play. And so I think that that's why it's still continuing to rise, is because he's not giving up. He's not giving in. He's playing what we want to see him do, and that's what we want to see him do.
Yeah, but I think that, I don't know, I've been really trying to come up with like a Survivor comparison for like someone who has not come back in such a long time, but when they do come back, you gain so much reverence for them. I guess maybe like an Ethan Zahn.
Ethan, yeah, was what I was thinking.
Of like, because, and who knows, maybe Kaser is going to finish in a very similar position as Ethan Zahn.
Don't you say that.
I know. Again, like I'm wearing his merch. I don't know if I want to make that comparison. But I think that Kaser, again, if we're talking about purely reputation, Kaser was sort of known for as like the guy who kind of got clowned on season 6 and never made the jury. I'm gonna vote out on his birthday twice. Like he had some fun moves, like the I sealed your partner's fate, but he was always known as like that brief candle that lit, put up a lot of smoke and a lot of fire, and then got snuffed out before jury. And that might be the case here. But I think Kaser being so fresh in the minds of Big Brother players, especially compared to people like Keisha, who may not have exactly capitalized on being in the Big Brother spotlight again, has earned so much favorability. And you join up with Janelle, and that just increases it even more so.
Yeah, he's brought so much to the table this season. Even if he does go out soon, I mean, just in terms of the sorts of issues that he's bringing up and the fun of some of the gameplay, and I think that Kaser, it's like all these people. It's like there is a long layoff, and you think like, are they still the person, or maybe they're a different person, but do they still bring a similar thing to the show? And I think that he has. So it makes sense that he would stay kind of where he is. And as you already said, Taryn, it's only up from here. I mean, this is where it starts.
He brings so much to the feeds, and he tries to bring so much to the game. It's very difficult, I think, to not appreciate Kaser, and I'm so glad that a whole new generation of Big Brother fans are getting to experience Kaser, and hopefully they're going back and appreciating him back in the day as well. All right, above Kaser we have once more Tyler in the top tier. No real movement. He started in the top tier at around this spot. He then dropped a little bit last week, and now he's back up to where he was when he started. Just very, very small fluctuations, though. He is mostly just staying exactly where he is. I think that people are very impressed with what they've seen with Tyler so far, and they were very impressed with what they saw from him the last time. And he's also like, I think, unlike, even like a Cody, certainly a Danny or Nicole, he's not super problematic in any major way. I think like the worst anybody has to say about Tyler is that like he gets a little cocky sometimes, and so I think that helps keep him from being dragged down by like people like stuff other than his gameplay, I would say. Brendan, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, and I mentioned it a little bit at the beginning of the podcast, it's like when there was those rumors that it was, we got Josh and KC were going to be on the show. I was like, okay, Tyler is set up okay, because there's going to be 4 winners. There's going to be these other players like Janelle. And then, when I first saw the makeup of the cast, I was like, there's a lot of older school players. And, I just really thought he would stand out more. And I kind of thought like, and potentially through no fault of his own even, that he wasn't really going to be able to ever get comfortable in this season. And, talk about players who come back and play the same game. Well, he's somebody that we didn't think could play the same game. I mean, it was, and I think it was even something you said, Darren, in an earlier podcast. I mean, he shouldn't have been able to do this stuff. And it's been said so many times, like, he shouldn't have been allowed to do this again. And it's getting those vibes of like, and the thing that's interesting is it's not like he, not just think about Survivor for 2 seconds. It's like that Tony thing. It's like he hasn't even had a moment where he stumbled. Like, it's not even like he had a moment where everyone was like, oh, Tyler, like he's not as good. Like, he made it all the way to the end, and yeah, he didn't win. But yeah, I'm impressed. And like, as you said, I mean, Danny is still looking at him. The wheels could come off here for Tyler, but just the fact that we're not sure that it will at this point is very, very impressive, I think.
And I also think the fact that like he's nominating Janelle and Kaser, and he's not really getting any heat for it.
That's the craziest thing.
You know, the audience is still like, even myself, who's like obviously super fans of both of them. Like, I'm like, well, you know what? Tyler's actually playing an okay game, and I know that's what he has to do for his game. And so whatever his mist is over me a little bit as well, and saying that like, I don't mind him making this move, even though it hurts me so much to say it. I don't think it affects his legacy for me right now.
Yeah, and I think, like Taryn said, I think, because he was not necessarily part of as many personal remarks about the outsiders, maybe some of his allies, I do think he's part of this group of people that, like, had they won, they'd be like, it's okay, honey, you can nominate Janelle and Kaser. It's totally fine. We understand. It's part of your game. And I'm so excited for this. I'm hopeful that Tyler's going to move into the Big Brother pantheon eventually, because I do think he is probably one of the best, if not the best, Big Brother modern player in the show. Like, I know that the tail end of his season last time was schmoopy and a little iconic as a result. But like, just look back at what he was able to accomplish in those first 6 weeks. And it is absolutely bananas what he was able to do. And it makes me so excited that if and when Danny does take a shot at him, that like Tyler is raring to go and he's willing to go into that game mode. Like right now, he is totally fine sitting back and being like, I'm going to do what the house wants. But he knows that as defensive as he is right now, he can be very offensive later on, as opposed to his allies, which might just be offensive.
And he has Christmas as his secret weapon. You know what I mean? Like Christmas can come in and take out some people that might be targeting him. And she's going to win stuff. Like, I think that she has it in her, especially because she wants to prove herself as being a comp beast from her previous season. Like, I think that she's going to be very helpful with getting him a lot further.
Yeah, if Christmas wins an HOH like a couple weeks from now, even maybe 2 weeks from now, even maybe 1 week from now, expect Tyler to be in her ear, a la Caitlyn, about Danny. Expect it, because it's probably going to happen. All right. Finally. Last person on the list, Janelle. Has she stayed in the pantheon, or has she fallen back into the top tier? She does remain in the Big Brother pantheon, still by a hair. I mean, it's not solid, and I'm curious to see if she is evicted this week. Will that knock her back down? Or will it push her back up? I don't know. But as of right now, she remains in the Big Brother pantheon. I have to imagine that I think she'll stay. But I think Big Brother 14 is the reason she fell out of it in the first place. I think the reason she was in the top tier and not the pantheon in the preseason is because of her performance in Big Brother 14. And people still loved her, but it was not a great performance. And so I think they came in with a slightly lower, expectation for her. If she goes out here again early, I think it's another not great performance. I think that it might not knock her out of the pantheon right now, but I do wonder long term what kind of effects it may have. But I don't know. Because right now I'm probably saying this and people are like, you are out of your mind, Taryn. We will never unstand Janelle. But again, like, this happens a lot every season. Like, we really ride hard for our faves in the pre-jury, and then the jury hits and we go, who?
No, never. Well, I kind of, like, for me, I would want to play with Janelle and Kaser so badly that, like, I couldn't take her out of that spot, because, like, she just would be so fun to play with. And I'm so sad that the house guests just didn't take their opportunity to play with her. And I think that people will not take that away from her, is that we still want to play with the legend of Janelle. I think that it'll always remain.
Yeah, I don't see her falling out of the pantheon at all. I think, the more interesting thing for me is, she's made it so close to the end twice. I mean, those 2 times. And I think that's what's interesting. The real story is these players like Tyler and these second-time players. I think more the story is, do they wind up above Janelle? I think that Janelle will always stay in the Big Brother pantheon. I think for me, what I see with Janelle long-term is, maybe she goes out early and she kind of is stagnant in that spot. And it's more these other people that have a chance to really get higher if they, love her, hate her. If Nicole Franzel becomes the first 2-time winner, I mean, that's good. Maybe she gets into the pantheon.
Ooh.
I mean, maybe. Well, no, I'm just saying.
Janelle versus Nicole in the Big Brother pantheon.
You love to see it.
Janelle is a 2-time loser and Nicole is a 2-time winner. Oh boy.
You remove all the personal stuff out of it. It's just these players. There's a lot of game left. So I don't think Janelle will ever leave the pantheon, but could someone like Tyler, I mean, if Keisha really does turn it on here and goes deep, I mean, he could get up in there. If Ian found a way to win twice. I mean, so I think Janelle is in the Big Brother pantheon. The question is just, do the people who last longer than her in the game, does that get them over?
Yeah, I completely agree that she's staying here for 2 particular reasons. One, I think what the memory of Janelle's time, considering if she does go here in Big Brother 22, is going to be is like, well, she came in as one of the big players. She got saved the first week. She tried to make a couple of moves to keep the people that she wanted in, but she hit a brick wall because people like Nicole Anthony and Keisha didn't want to do anything. And then she got voted out, which again is a bit of a bastardization of the series of events. But that's a very easy narrative to twist. And the second thing is, 3 weeks into this season, I can say without question, this season is Janelle's season. Everything has been about her, from the show edits to every other word that comes out of people's mouths has been about Janelle Pierzina. And so I can imagine that is not necessarily going to fade over time, even if her presence does. So yeah, I just think when I'm looking at even just like, posthumously remembering her right now, even though she's not out the door yet, I do think it's going to be tough to like forget that element of the season and then knock her out of the pantheon as a result.
And I also think that how she kind of handles this situation too is really respectful. She's not crying about her position. Yeah. She's like, she's still empowered and she's still like, okay, well, if I have a great life at home, like this is just a game, but like, of course I want to come in, I want to win, and I will do my best at every competition. But if this is how it's supposed to go, I'm not going to be heartbroken and devastated over it. And I think that also that the viewers are not feeling devastated in that way, that she's like crying and upset. Like, I think that, we're able to still stand her because she's just such a badass bee.
All right. Okay, that's what we have for the Legacy Watch.
Perfectly symmetrical. That's amazing.
Yeah. People were pointing it out in the chat. That's it is exactly, if you're watching the video, you can see it's a nice little symmetrical tier there. All right. That's what we have for the Legacy Watch. That's what we have for the podcast. Brendan, any final thoughts? Any last things that you wanted to talk about?
I mean, just we gotta hold on for that civil war here. I believe it, or that Keisha HOH win. We need one of those two, or we need the magic, America's bow, the pendant of protection needs to come back.
No,
Keisha needs this. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. But I'm just in jest. No, I mean, I do think, look, if this week goes the way that we think it's gonna go, and Janelle just goes out the door, it won't be great. But we just have to hope. I mean, it's happened before where feels like the season's going one way, and sometimes it doesn't surprise us, but a lot of the time it does. So we just have to hope that happens.
Yes. Chantal.
I do have a little bit of a question. So on the feeds, Janelle had mentioned that she spoke to someone in the diary room, I'm assuming, and they said that if she was evicted first or second week, that she would be in sequester, we'll say, for until mid-September, which made us all kind of believe, including Devon, that there was likely going to be a battle back of some sort. But then now we're learning that Keisha is home. She's actually, did a video tweet about, or video message about like being at home and that there's no battle back. And so what do you think happened there? Do you think that was a lie that maybe Janelle had stated just to put a little bit of fear in people about like getting rid of her and then she'll come back with a vengeance, or things change, or is it maybe still a possibility for her?
You will be.
It would be a weird lie, especially because she was safe that week when she was talking about it, and also
and she would have done the "you're not allowed to talk about production" thing, right? If that was indeed a thing.
Yeah, that's true, and also it kind of provides incentive for people to get rid of her. It's like, oh, if there's a battle bag, then we send her out so that she doesn't is like you gotta waste it on her or something. I don't have any reason to believe she's lying. I think I also heard that I didn't see this myself, but I read somewhere that Angela mentioned in a video that she kind of like was under the impression that there might be some kind of battle bag as well, like looking at the contracts and stuff. They all seemed to, many of them seemed to be under that impression, but it definitely has not happened yet. It could be that things changed because the production this season is very, they have to do what they have to do. It could genuinely be a package specifically for Janelle. or Tyler.
maybe they had the choice whether they want to compete or not. And that Keisha was like, I don't think, like, if Janelle's coming out soon, like, I want Janelle to have a chance. So I'm electing not to compete in the battle back. And maybe Nicole Anthony wants to make nice with all the fans. And it's like, I'm not going to compete in the battle back if it's going to be Janelle and Keisha back to back. Like, let them do it. Let them have it. So maybe that's not right.
I mean, they have had, like, I believe when Keisha was voted back in Big Brother 6, like, I don't think Ashleigh was involved for whatever reason. Like, I thought it was between Michael and Eric and Kaser. So, I mean, they could do something where it's like, we're going to take the last 3 evicted people, the people evicted in weeks 3, 4, and 5, and one of them is going to return, Or to Taryn's point, it could have been a thing where they initially had a pre-jury battle back built in, said, you know what, for whatever reason, we're going to change it to jury. And so they just like pivoted on the fly to that.
I mean, genuinely,
maybe
go ahead.
I was just going to say, maybe they didn't want to have to sequester everybody all over again. I mean, maybe they realized, well, we have to have a jury house anyway, and they didn't want to create a whole new pre-jury space. I mean, I can't imagine it's that difficult, but maybe they just switched gears.
I mean, like, genuinely, maybe they did learn their lesson from the Frank thing that happened in Big Brother 18, where he, like, just missed the 2 battle bags. And they decided that we're just going to start it with Janelle. Or whoever wanted to come back.
My last thought is maybe with the camp comeback idea is that, okay, it was always going to be week 3, 4, and 5 that would go into that new room that's going to be potentially unlocked. And then maybe then they're going to compete in a battle back competition with the I guess would be the 6th person out or something like that. Maybe. Oh, no, please. I mean, I'm just trying. I'm hanging on to everything. Please.
All right.
That's all
Mike, any final thoughts? Any last things you wanted to talk about?
I mean, let's be honest. It's looking pretty bleak in these Big Brother streets, right? I mean, these are popular contestants who have not been talked about in the fairest light. And it's been a rough week for them from a calendar perspective, from being, trashed by someone they were championing to now one of them definitely going. This might be overly optimistic on my part, but I have faith that this cast is wackadoo enough that they are not going to let a 6-person or 4-person alliance that was made in the first week get to the end. Something's got to give, whether it be a twist, whether it be a stray comp win, or whether it just be the whims of Danny Briones and Tyler Crispin. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. If there was a light at the end of the tunnel of Big Brother 21, there can be a light at the end of the tunnel here. This is All Stars. I know people are understandably totally understand the reasoning that this is super disappointing, but I do not think it's time to throw the baby out with the bathwater, especially while Christmas is watching it. She'll be angry if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, genuinely, Big Brother 21, it did get better. It actually got kind of good there for a second. If that season can do it, this season definitely can. And I really feel like this, I don't want to eat these words. This is the low point in the season. This is as low as it goes. We have to now give up the hope that Janelle and Kaser were going to get out of this. We now have to accept their fates. And from this point forward, we know that Kaser is screwed. We know that Janelle is screwed. Whoever it is that survives, we're not going to have much hope for them. and we are going to have to accept the new reality that we're living in. And it's never going to get this bad again, because we're never going to have that like Janelle and Kaser hope again. And even if the new underdog loses, it's not going to be as bad as Janelle losing. So it can only go up from here.
Well, what happens if they nominate Bay and Day next week and Devon goes out?
We have to, it's like everyone who keeps talking about the alliances and they come true. We just have to keep talking about how this is about to become a great season and how this is about
or
to
we
be,
just call contractors and say, keep building rooms onto that Big Brother house. Like, I don't care how much money you spend, keep these people in here.
All right.
Other guest house.
Yes.
It's in the backyard.
Yeah, just keep them around. Have a dedicated feed. All right. That's what we have for you this week. Thank you guys so much for joining me. You guys were great. The audience, you guys were also great. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that has happened today on the Big Brother 21 live feeds. And tomorrow night, we will be live to recap the Sunday night nomination episodes of Big Brother 22. And then Tuesday night, I'll be back for the Stock Watch Roundtable, where we will rate the players and update the prices, see how you guys have done in the Stock Watch. If you want to play, you can go to realitystockwatch.com. The market is currently closed, but it will open after Tuesday and the podcast thing that happens. I said it wrong. It's fine. Mike, what are you up to? Where can people find you?
You can find me at a Mike Bloom type, and what I am up to is a lot. From the Big Brother perspective, I am, of course, covering Big Brother on the B&B with Liana Boris. We actually just recorded earlier today with Haley Strong. We did a lot of fun stuff. We played a version of Buffer Stuff called Bring It or Zing It for all of the fashion choices made. Spoiler alert, we did start with Memphis's denim vest because that was that was the Kindle that started the fire here. And I'm doing exit press for Big Brother 22 as well on parade.com. As I mentioned, got to speak with Nicole Anthony, who again was very open about her game, and I also did some word association with her. And when it comes to being right or being kind, she was certainly right about some of her thoughts about people in that majority alliance. So be sure to check that out. Other than that, doing the Survivor B&B as well for the Survivor rewatch that is coming around. I'm doing Beyond Top Chef. I just did a bunch of stuff on post-show recaps, including talking Lovecraft Country Episode 1, Spider-Man, Homecoming, as well as covering our Lost rewatch on Down the Hatch, covering Tough as Nails as well, and A Partridge in a Pear Tree. And I am having the time of my life right now. And thank you so much for having me on, Taryn.
Yes, thank you for coming on. Chantel.
Well, I wish I was doing as much as you are, but so far I've kind of only been self-isolating and playing online reality games, or I actually did play a live reality game a couple weeks ago. I played a in-person Survivor game out at a lake, and I camped. So that was kind of fun. So kind of divulging, myself right into these games has been super fun. Obviously, watching everything. Can't wait to start watching Love Island. That's going to be starting up soon, and so going down that rabbit hole is going to be really exciting. But you can find me pretty much all the things that I'm ever doing at ShanFranFran on Instagram, and all my other links are going to be there too.
I was so mad at the Love Island preview on Thursday night because Janelle had just lost, and I was just like, get this off my screen. You don't deserve to promo anything right now.
This is the twist that people who are eliminated from Big Brother are being sent to the Love Island house.
I mean, considering that I think only
that's what it is.
Well, considering that I think only 2 of them in the cast were single, they're gonna have a real tough time on there.
That's the drama of Love Island, Mike. That's the twist.
Yeah.
That's the jury out. Navigating.
Brendan, what are you up to? Where can people find you?
You can find me Brendan KJ Meyer on Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, just at the moment, things are still slow with the film and television industry. So just waiting for things to get back in the swing with that. I'm also in a online movie trivia league called Movie Trivia Schmodown. That's like a competitive movie trivia. So I've been doing a lot of that. It's on YouTube. You can find it there. And
have you been doing well?
I actually have been. I have been doing well. There's been a lot of ups and downs, but yes, I've had a lot of free time to watch a lot of movies, so I'm on a bit of a win streak now. So this is good.
There you go.
Just watching Big Brother and all that different stuff.
It's the life. It's the life. All right. You can find me on Twitter at Armstrong Taryn. If you want to take part in the Legacy Watch survey, you can find that on my Twitter at Armstrong Taryn on Saturday mornings after the roundtable, or sorry, after the update before the roundtable. And you can find me on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/Taryn Armstrong. I actually had that reaction to the Love Island thing live on Twitch as I was watching the episode, so you can go and watch it on Twitch, twitch.tv.
Oh, I really want there to be a commercial of like, this is what our listeners, our watchers are thinking about Love Island. It just cuts to like your extraordinarily exasperated reaction to the show.
Yes.
People are speechless.
That is what we have for you. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.